The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a golden glow across the quiet fields of a small town in Iowa. Birds chirped lazily, and the air smelled faintly of freshly cut grass. It was an ordinary evening, or so it seemed. Suddenly, the sky darkened as massive shapes began to blot out the stars. At first people thought they were clouds, but then came the sound, a low, rumbling hum that vibrated through the ground beneath their feet. The townsfolk stepped outside, craning their necks upward. What they saw left them frozen in place. Gigantic ships, sleek and metallic, hovered silently above the earth. They shimmered with strange lights, each one larger than any skyscraper humans had ever built. The ships didn't move like airplanes or rockets. Instead, they floated effortlessly as if gravity itself bent to their will. Within moments, similar vessels appeared all over the world, stationed above every major city and capital. News spread quickly. Phones buzzed with alerts, televisions flickered on automatically, and social media exploded with videos of the alien fleet. Governments scrambled to respond, calling emergency meetings and activating military forces. But no one fired a shot. Not yet. The aliens, who called themselves the Veilans, made no hostile moves. Instead, they broadcast a message in perfect English, along with dozens of other languages spoken around the planet. "We come in peace," the voice declared. It was calm, almost soothing, yet carried an undertone of authority. "We are here to observe your species and evaluate your potential for cooperation within the galactic community." People listened intently, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Some cheered at the idea of meeting extraterrestrial life, while others whispered prayers, fearing the worst. For days, the Veilans remained in orbit, sending down smaller craft to land near populated areas. These ships disgorged teams of soldiers clad in gleaming armor, armed with weapons unlike anything humanity had seen before. Their presence was intimidating, but they did not attack. Instead, they walked among humans, observing everything from street vendors to military bases. Among the Veilan forces was Commander Kyle, a tall, imposing figure whose armor glowed faintly blue. He led his troops with an air of superiority, treating Earth as little more than a curiosity. To him, humans were primitive creatures, barely worthy of notice. During one encounter, he watched as a group of U.S. Marines demonstrated their firearms. The soldiers fired rounds at targets, showcasing their accuracy and discipline. Kyle smirked, turning to his second-in-command. "Pathetic," he said, his voice dripping with disdain. "These weapons are crude compared to ours. Even their best marksmen would struggle to hit one of our warriors. Energy shields render their bullets useless." His words traveled back to Earth's leaders, relayed by translators working tirelessly to bridge the communication gap between species. The insult stung, especially for those tasked with defending the planet. Among them was Captain Ryan Carter, a decorated sniper known for his unparalleled skill. Ryan had spent years honing his craft, mastering the art of patience and precision. He could wait hours, even days, for the perfect moment to take a shot. Now, standing in a dimly lit briefing room, he clenched his fists as he heard about Kyle's mockery. "They're underestimating us," Ryan muttered, shaking his head. "Big mistake." Ryan wasn't alone in feeling this way. Around him sat members of an elite sniper unit assembled by global military leaders. Each member brought unique talents to the table. There was Emily Dawson, a soft-spoken woman with sharp eyes and an uncanny ability to read terrain. Her rifle never missed its mark. Then there was Jake Thompson, younger and more brash than the others, but undeniably talented. His cockiness sometimes grated on his teammates, but no one could deny his skill. As the team discussed strategy, Ryan leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "Listen up," he said, his voice steady and commanding. "These aliens think we're weak because we don't have fancy energy weapons or shields. Let's show them what we can do. We'll use what makes us dangerous: stealth, precision, and knowing the land better than anyone else." The room fell silent as everyone considered his words. While fighter jets and tanks might be useless against the Veilans' advanced technology, snipers operated differently. They relied on patience, camouflage, and exploiting weaknesses. If the Valens truly believed they were invincible, they'd leave openings and the snipers would find them. Over the next few days, the team prepared meticulously. They studied footage of Valen patrols, analyzing their movements and identifying patterns. They practiced blending into environments using natural cover to remain unseen. Every detail mattered, from the angle of sunlight to the rustle of leaves in the wind. Ryan drilled his team relentlessly, pushing them to their limits. He knew lives depended on their success. Meanwhile, tensions between humans and the Valens continued to rise. Though the aliens claimed their mission was peaceful, strange incidents began to occur. People living near Valan landing sites reported disappearances. Entire families vanished without a trace, leaving behind only empty homes and unanswered questions. Rumors spread that the Valans were conducting experiments on humans, testing their biology for unknown purposes. Governments hesitated to act, unwilling to provoke a war they couldn't win. But Ryan and his team weren't bound by such constraints. Operating in secret, they took positions in remote locations, watching and waiting. They observed Valan patrols moving through forests and cities, their glowing armor making them easy targets if one knew where to aim. One afternoon, Ryan spotted an opportunity. A squad of Valan soldiers marched confidently through a wooded area, oblivious to the sniper hidden in the trees above. Ryan adjusted his scope, lining up the shot carefully. He exhaled slowly, steadying his breathing, and squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew true, striking the lead soldier in the knee joint of his armor. The alien stumbled, crying out in surprise as his comrades rushed to help him. Chaos erupted as the patrol scrambled to locate the source of the attack, but Ryan was already gone, slipping away through the underbrush like a ghost. Back at their hidden camp, the team celebrated quietly. It was a small victory, but a meaningful one. For the first time since the Valans arrived, someone had struck back and lived to tell the tale. Word of the incident reached Commander Kale, who seethed with anger. How dare these primitive beings challenge his forces? He ordered increased security measures, deploying drones and scanners to root out the attackers. But the snipers adapted, staying one step ahead. They knew the aliens' arrogance would be their downfall. As night fell once again, Ryan gazed up at the stars, now obscured by the looming shapes of alien ships. He felt a mix of fear and determination. The road ahead would be difficult, perhaps impossible. But one thing was certain. The Valans had underestimated humanity, and they would pay for their mistake. The days that followed the first sniper attack were tense. The Valans, once confident and dismissive, now moved with a hint of caution. Their glowing armor cut through the darkness as they patrolled in larger groups, their weapons ready. Commander, Kale demanded answers from his subordinates, pacing back and forth in his command center aboard the flagship. His voice echoed sharply through the room. How could this happen? He barked, glaring at his officers. We are the most advanced species in the galaxy. How can primitive humans strike us without warning? No one dared to answer. The truth was, none of them understood how the attack had been carried out. The human snipers left no trace behind. No footprints, no discarded equipment, nothing. It was as if they had vanished into thin air after firing their shots. Kyle's frustration grew with each passing hour, but he refused to admit defeat. Instead, he ordered his forces to increase surveillance, deploying drones and scanners across Earth's surface. He vowed to uncover the source of the threat. Meanwhile, on the ground, Ryan Carter and his team regrouped in a secluded forest clearing. They had set up a temporary camp hidden beneath thick foliage, using natural cover to shield themselves from prying eyes. Around a small fire, the group reviewed what they had learned so far. Emily Dawson crouched near the flames, her rifle resting against her shoulder as she studied maps of the area. Jake Thompson sat cross-legged nearby, sharpening his knife with quick, impatient strokes. "We got lucky last time," Ryan said, breaking the silence. His voice was calm but firm. "But we can't rely on luck forever. The Valans are getting smarter. They're watching for us now." Emily nodded. "They've started using those drones more often. If we're not careful, they'll spot us before we even get close. Ryan leaned forward, resting his hands on his knees. That's why we need to change our tactics. We can't just pick off random patrols anymore. We need to hit them where it hurts. Leaders, supply lines, anything that disrupts their operations. Jake smirked, flicking his knife into the dirt. Sounds like fun. Let's take out their big boss next. Ryan shot him a sharp look. This isn't a game, Jake. Every move we make has consequences. If we mess up, it won't just be us paying the price, it'll be everyone on this planet. Jake shrugged, unfazed. I know. Just saying, if we're gonna do this, let's go big. Despite his bravado, Ryan knew Jake had a point. Hitting high-value targets would send a message to the Valens, one they couldn't ignore. But such missions came with risks. The higher the stakes, the greater the chance of failure. Ryan turned to Emily. What do you think? Where should we focus next? Emily tapped a spot on the map with her finger. Here. This is where they've stationed most of their ground troops. If we can disrupt their command structure here, it might throw them into chaos. Ryan studied the map, nodding slowly. Good idea. Let's plan it out carefully. We'll need every advantage we can get. Over the next few days, the team prepared for their next operation. They scouted the area, memorizing patrol routes and identifying weak points in the Valens' defenses. Ryan drilled his team relentlessly, ensuring they were ready for anything. He reminded them constantly to stay disciplined and focused. One mistake could cost them everything. As they worked, strange reports began to surface about the Valens' activities. People living near their bases spoke of eerie lights in the night sky and loud, unnatural noises coming from the surrounding woods. Some claimed to have seen humans being taken aboard alien ships, never to return. These stories spread quickly, fueling fear and anger among the population. Governments tried to reassure the public, issuing statements urging calm. But behind closed doors, leaders debated how to respond. Military commanders argued for launching an all-out assault, while diplomats insisted on finding a peaceful solution. In the end, no one took action. The Valens' technology was simply too advanced, and the risk of provoking a full-scale war was too great. Ryan and his team, however, weren't bound by politics or fear. They operated in the shadows, striking when the moment was right. Their next target was a convoy transporting supplies to one of the Valens' largest outposts. Intelligence suggested the convoy included not only food and equipment, but also important officers overseeing the occupation. On the night of the mission, the team moved quietly through the forest, sticking to the dense underbrush. The moon hung, low in the sky, casting faint light over the landscape. Ryan led the way, his rifle slung over his shoulder as he scanned the area for signs of movement. Behind him, Emily and Jake followed closely, their weapons at the ready. When they reached the edge of the road, Ryan signaled for the others to stop. Through the trees, they could see the convoy approaching, a line of armored vehicles flanked by Valens soldiers. The aliens moved confidently, their glowing armor making them easy to spot. Ryan raised his hand, counting down silently on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The first shot rang out, echoing through the forest. A Valens soldier crumpled to the ground, clutching his leg. Before the others could react, another shot took down a second guard. Chaos erupted as the convoy came to a halt. Soldiers scrambled for cover, shouting orders in their guttural language, but the snipers remained unseen, picking off targets one by one. From her position on a hill overlooking the scene, Emily lined up her next shot. She exhaled slowly, steadying her aim, and fired. Her bullet struck a key officer in the chest, sending him sprawling to the ground. The remaining Valens panicked, unsure where the attacks were coming from. Ryan watched with satisfaction as their confidence crumbled. Time to go, he whispered, signaling for the team to retreat. They melted back into the forest, disappearing as quickly as they had arrived. By the time reinforcements arrived to secure the area, the snipers were long gone. All that remained were the bodies of fallen Valens and the wreckage of their convoy. Back at camp, The team celebrated their success quietly. They had dealt a significant blow to the enemy, disrupting their supply chain and eliminating key personnel. But Ryan knew better than to let the victory go to their heads. Each attack brought them closer to their goal, but also closer to being discovered. Commander Kale, meanwhile, was livid. When news of the ambush reached him, he slammed his fist onto the table, nearly toppling a holographic display of Earth's surface. "Enough!" he roared. "Find these humans and destroy them. I will not tolerate such insolence." His officers exchanged nervous glances but said nothing. They knew better than to argue with Kale when he was in this kind of mood. Orders went out immediately, calling for increased patrols and stricter security measures. The Valens began fortifying their positions, determined to root out the elusive attackers, but the humans had one advantage the Valens couldn't match: knowledge of the terrain. Ryan and his team used every trick they knew to stay ahead of their pursuers. They hid in caves, climbed cliffs, and waded through rivers to throw off trackers. They timed their movements carefully, avoiding areas where drones flew overhead. And when necessary, they fought back, not with brute force, but with precision and strategy. One evening, as the team rested in a shallow cave, Jake broke the silence. "You think they're starting to realize we're not as weak as they thought?" Ryan glanced at him, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Maybe, but realizing it and doing something about it are two different things." Emily added, "They still underestimate us. That's their biggest mistake." Ryan nodded. "Exactly. As long as they keep thinking they're invincible, we've got a chance." Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lonely sound that seemed to echo the uncertainty hanging over the world. Humanity's future was far from certain, but for now, Ryan and his team held on to hope. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for everyone who called Earth home, and as long as they kept hitting their marks, the Valens would never see them coming. The victories kept coming, but they weren't enough to turn the tide. Each successful strike against the Valens boosted morale among Ryan's team, but it also made them more visible. The aliens, once arrogant and dismissive, now hunted for the humans with relentless determination. Drones scoured the skies, scanning forests, mountains, and cities. Patrols doubled in size, their glowing armor cutting through the darkness like beacons. Commander Kyle had issued a new directive: find the snipers no matter the cost. Ryan Carter felt the pressure mounting. He knew the window of opportunity was closing. The Valens were learning, adapting, and tightening their grip on Earth. If his team didn't escalate their efforts soon, they risked being caught, or worse, rendered irrelevant as the Valens crushed humanity underfoot. Sitting around a makeshift table in their hidden camp, Ryan stared at a crude map marked with red circles. Each circle represented a Valen stronghold or patrol route. His eyes settled on one location in particular, a sprawling military base near Chicago. "This is it," Ryan said, tapping the map. "Their central hub in this region. Supplies, communications, officers. They've got everything here." Emily. Dawson leaned closer, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied the spot. "It's heavily guarded. We'd never get close without being spotted." Jake Thompson smirked, leaning back on his stool. "That's what they think. Let 'em underestimate us again." Ryan shot him a look. "This isn't about showing off, Jake. This is about hitting them where it hurts. If we can take out their command center, it'll cripple their operations in this area." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "He's right, but we'll need a plan, something smarter than just sneaking in and shooting." For hours, the team pored over details, debating strategies. They considered every angle: timing, terrain, possible escape routes. Finally, Ryan outlined the mission. They would use the upcoming Valen parade as cover. The aliens had announced a grand display of their power, marching through the streets of Chicago to showcase their dominance. High-ranking officers would attend, surrounded by soldiers and civilians forced to watch. It was risky, but the perfect opportunity to strike. The day of the parade arrived. The streets buzzed with nervous energy. Humans lined the sidewalks, their faces pale with fear as they watched rows of armored Valons march past. Some held banners praising the invaders, though their hands trembled as they clutched them. Others stood silently, their eyes downcast. Above, drones hovered, recording the event for broadcast across the galaxy. Hidden on a rooftop several blocks away, Emily adjusted her rifle, peering through the scope. Her breathing slowed as she focused, blocking out the noise below. Beside her, Ryan scanned the crowd with binoculars, searching for the target. Jake waited nearby, ready to provide cover or create a diversion if needed. "There," Ryan whispered, pointing toward a platform set up near the center of the parade route. A group of Valan commanders stood proudly, their glowing armor gleaming in the sunlight. One figure stood taller than the rest, Commander Kale himself. Emily exhaled slowly, lining up her shot. Her finger hovered over the trigger. "I've got him." "Wait," Ryan said sharply. "Not yet. Wait for my signal." Seconds ticked by like hours. The tension was unbearable. Then, as the procession reached its climax, Ryan gave the nod. Emily squeezed the trigger. The bullet flew true, striking Commander Kale in the shoulder. The impact sent him stumbling backward, clutching the wound as his subordinates rushed to protect him. Panic erupted in the streets as Valan soldiers scrambled to locate the source of the attack. Civilians screamed, running in all directions. Chaos reigned. On the rooftop, Emily quickly disassembled her rifle, shoving it into her pack. "Let's move," Ryan ordered, already heading for the exit. The team slipped away, blending into the panicked crowd below. Behind them, alarms blared as Valan forces locked down the area. Though Kale survived, the attack sent shockwaves through the alien ranks. For the first time, the Valans realized they were dealing with something far more dangerous than primitive locals. They were facing hunters. Commanders gathered in emergency meetings, poring over data and surveillance footage. Kale raged at his subordinates, demanding answers. How could mere humans evade their defenses so effectively? What made these snipers so deadly? While the Valans searched for solutions, Ryan's team regrouped in a secluded barn miles away. Exhausted but triumphant, they allowed themselves a moment to celebrate. Jake grinned, pulling a flask from his pocket. "To us, the deadliest shots in the galaxy." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "Don't get cocky. We're not done yet." Emily agreed. "If anything, this just made them angrier. They'll come after us harder now." She was right. Over the next few days, the Valans intensified their efforts to find the snipers. Checkpoints sprang up along roads patrolled by armed soldiers. Surveillance drones filled the skies, their cameras scanning every inch of ground. Even remote areas became unsafe as the aliens expanded their search. One evening, as the team prepared for their next mission, a message came through on their encrypted radio. It was garbled at first, but then a voice broke through. "Captain Carter, do you copy? This is Lieutenant Harris." Ryan grabbed the receiver. "Harris, what's going on?" "We've got intel you need to hear," Harris replied. "There's talk of a mole within Earth's command. Someone's been leaking information to the Valans." Ryan's stomach sank. A traitor? That explained how the Valans seemed to anticipate some of their moves. "Are you sure?" he asked. "Pretty damn sure," Harris said grimly. "Be careful. Out there, you're walking into a trap." The news weighed heavily on the team. Trust was a fragile thing, especially now. Every decision, every movement had to be questioned. Could they rely on the intelligence they received? Were their safe houses truly secure? Ryan knew they couldn't afford to second-guess themselves. Not entirely, but caution was essential. Their next mission was a raid on a Valan supply depot. Intelligence suggested it housed critical resources, including fuel cells powering their advanced technology. Destroying it would deal a significant blow to the enemy. But as they approached the site, something felt off. The usual patrols were absent, replaced by an eerie silence. Ryan signaled for the team to halt. "Something's wrong," he whispered. "Stay sharp." Moments later, the trap was sprung. Hidden turrets emerged from the ground, firing beams of energy that lit up the night. Valen soldiers poured out of concealed positions surrounding the team. Jake reacted instantly, tossing a smoke grenade to obscure their view. "Go, go!" he shouted, laying down covering fire. Ryan and Emily sprinted toward a cluster of crates, using them for cover as they returned fire. Bullets ricocheted off, the Valen's energy shields doing little damage. Despite their skill, the odds were overwhelming. Just as all hope seemed lost, a deafening roar split the air. A convoy of trucks roared into view, manned by local militia fighters led by Sarah Bennett, a fiery activist turned guerrilla leader. "Need a ride?" she called, leaping out of the lead vehicle with a shotgun in hand. Without hesitation, Ryan and his team jumped aboard. The militia fighters unleashed a barrage of gunfire, forcing the Valons to retreat. As the truck sped away, Jake collapsed onto the floor, clutching his leg. Blood seeped through his fingers, staining his uniform. "We need to patch him up," Emily said urgently, tearing open a med kit. Ryan clenched his jaw, guilt gnawing at him. They had escaped, but at a cost. Jake's injury was severe, leaving him unable to continue fighting. Worse, the betrayal lingered in the air, poisoning their trust. Who had leaked their plans? And how many more traps lay ahead? Back at a temporary safe house, the team regrouped. Jake lay on a cot, pale but conscious. Sarah Bennett paced the room, her frustration evident. "You can't keep doing this alone," she said. "You need help. People are willing to fight." Ryan shook his head. "We appreciate it, Sarah, but this isn't your fight. Our methods work because we stay small, stay hidden. Bringing in more people only increases the risk." Sarah crossed her arms. "And look where that's gotten you. You're outnumbered, outgunned, and someone's selling you out. Maybe it's time to rethink your strategy." Her words struck a nerve. Ryan knew she was right, but admitting it was hard. He turned to Emily. "What do you think?" Emily hesitated before speaking. "She's got a point. We can't win this war hiding in the shadows forever. But opening up means trusting others, and right now, I'm not sure who we can trust." The conversation ended there, unresolved. That night, Ryan sat outside the safe house staring at the stars. The alien ship still loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the land. He thought about Jake, lying injured inside, and the countless others who had sacrificed everything for this cause. Humanity was resilient, but resilience alone wouldn't be enough. As dawn broke, Ryan made a decision. They couldn't face the Valens alone, not anymore. But building alliances meant taking risks, exposing vulnerabilities they couldn't afford to lose. Still, if they wanted to survive, they had no choice. The snipers had proven they could hurt the Valens. Now it was time to show the galaxy that Earth wasn't just a target. It was a force to be reckoned with. And maybe, just maybe, that unity would give them the edge they needed to turn the tide. The days following the ambush at the supply depot were tense. Ryan Carter and his team stayed hidden, nursing their wounds and planning their next move. Jake's leg was healing slowly, but he wouldn't be able to fight anytime soon. The loss of his sharpshooting skills left a noticeable gap in the team's strength. Emily Dawson worked tirelessly to keep morale high, though even she couldn't shake the feeling that they were losing ground. The betrayal still hung over them like a dark cloud, poisoning every decision they made. Ryan knew they couldn't afford to sit idle for long. The Valens were growing bolder, expanding their control over Earth with each passing day. Cities were being transformed into alien fortresses, their towering spires jutting into the sky like jagged teeth. Human resistance fighters tried to push back, but without coordination or advanced weapons, their efforts amounted to little more than pinpricks against the invaders. Something had to change, and fast. One evening, as the team gathered around, a flickering lantern in their makeshift hideout, Sarah Bennett returned. She stepped inside quietly, her boots caked with mud from the forest trail. Her face was grim, but her eyes burned with determination. "We need to talk," she said, sitting down across from Ryan. "What is it?" Ryan asked, leaning forward. He trusted Sarah, but her visits always came with news, good or bad. I've been talking to other groups, Sarah began. Not just locals, but people from all over. Farmers, soldiers, engineers, even hackers. They're scared, but they're willing to fight. We just need someone to lead them. Ryan frowned. You know how we operate. Small teams, staying off the grid. Bringing in more people means risking exposure. Sarah shook her head. Staying. Small isn't working anymore. You hit them hard, sure, but it's not enough. The Valens are too strong, too organized. If we want to win, we have to hit them harder and smarter. Emily spoke up, her voice calm but firm. She has a point. We can't keep doing this alone, but if we bring others in, we'll need rules. Trust is key here. Ryan sighed, rubbing his temples. He hated the idea of putting innocent lives at risk. But deep down, he knew Sarah was right. The sniper's precision could only do so much. To truly turn the tide, they needed numbers and resources. Fine, Ryan said finally. But we start small. Gather people you trust completely, no one else, and make sure they understand what they're getting into. Sarah nodded, relief washing over her face. Thank you, I'll get started right away. Over the next week, the team worked to integrate new recruits into their operations. Sarah brought in a mix of civilians and former soldiers, each with unique skills. There was Marcus, a mechanic who could fix anything. Lena, a tech-savvy teenager who hacked into Valence systems with ease. And Greg, a farmer-turned-explosives expert. Together, they formed a patchwork army, united by a shared goal, to drive the invaders from Earth. Training was intense. Ryan drilled the newcomers relentlessly, teaching them stealth tactics and survival skills. Emily focused on marksmanship, showing them how to aim true under pressure. Jake, though injured, acted as a mentor, sharing tips and tricks from his own experience. Slowly but surely, the group began to gel, transforming from frightened individuals into a cohesive unit. Their first joint mission came sooner than expected. A Valon transport ship had landed near a remote mountain range, carrying supplies destined for a heavily fortified base. Intelligence suggested the cargo included experimental weapons capable of leveling entire cities. Destroying the shipment would deal a significant blow to the enemy. The plan was simple, yet risky. The main sniper team, Ryan, Emily, and 2 trusted recruits, would infiltrate the area and disable the ship's engines. Meanwhile, Sarah and the rest of the group would create a diversion, drawing the attention of nearby patrols. Timing was critical. If either part of the operation failed, the entire mission would collapse. On the night of the raid, the air was thick with tension. The team moved silently through the forest, sticking to shadows and avoiding open spaces. Ryan led the way, his rifle slung over his shoulder as he scanned the terrain. Behind him, Emily kept watch, her sharp eyes catching every movement. The recruits followed closely, their nerves taut, but their resolve steady. When they reached the edge of the clearing, where the transport ship stood, Ryan signaled for everyone to stop. Through the trees, they could see Valen soldiers guarding the vessel, their glowing armor casting an eerie light. Ryan raised his hand, counting down silently on his fingers. 3, 2, 1. The diversion began. From a distance, explosions erupted, lighting up the night sky. The sound was deafening, sending shockwaves through the forest. The Valons reacted instantly, rushing toward the source of the commotion. As the guards abandoned their posts, Ryan and his team slipped into the clearing. "Move fast," Ryan whispered, heading straight for the ship. Emily covered him, keeping her rifle trained on the surrounding area. The recruits split up, planting charges on the ship's engines. Their hands trembled slightly, but they worked quickly, following Ryan's instructions to the letter. Just as the last charge was set, alarms blared. The Valens had realized they'd been tricked. Reinforcements poured into the clearing, their weapons firing beams of energy that lit up the darkness. Ryan cursed under his breath. "Fall back now!" The team retreated into the forest, dodging blasts as they ran. Emily fired a few well-placed shots, taking down pursuing soldiers before disappearing into the trees. Behind them, the charges detonated, engulf objects. The explosion ripped through the night, lighting up the forest like daylight. The Valen transport ship groaned as its engines disintegrated, sending shards of metal flying in all directions. Flames licked at the wreckage, casting long shadows across the clearing. For a moment there was silence. Then chaos erupted as alien soldiers scrambled to contain the damage. Ryan and his team didn't stop to watch. They ran as fast as their legs could carry them, weaving through trees and leaping over roots. Emily covered the rear, firing carefully aimed shots to slow down any pursuers. Her rifle cracked through the air, each bullet finding its mark with deadly precision. Behind her, the recruits followed Ryan's lead, their faces pale but determined. "Keep moving!" Ryan shouted, his voice barely audible over the roar of flames and distant explosions. "We're not safe yet." The diversion Sarah and the others had created was still raging. Explosions echoed in the distance, drawing more Valan forces away from the crash site. But Ryan knew it wouldn't last forever. Sooner or later, the aliens would realize the real target and regroup. They needed to put as much distance between themselves and the wreckage as possible. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, they reached a narrow ravine. It was steep and rocky, but it offered cover. Ryan signaled for everyone to climb down, helping the slower recruits navigate the treacherous slope. Once they were safely hidden among the boulders, he allowed himself a brief moment to catch his breath. "We did it," one of the recruits whispered, grinning despite the exhaustion etched on his face. "We actually blew up their ship." Ryan nodded, though his expression remained grim. "Good job, but don't celebrate yet. This is just one victory. The Valens will come after us harder now." Emily crouched nearby, reloading her rifle. "He's right. That explosion will bring every patrol within 50 miles down on our heads. We need to keep moving." Before they could decide their next move, a faint buzzing sound filled the air. Drones. The Valens had deployed surveillance units to track them. Ryan cursed under his breath. There was no time to rest. "Stay low and quiet," he ordered. "If those drones spot us, we're dead." The group pressed on, sticking to the shadows and avoiding open spaces. The drones hovered overhead, their cameras scanning the ground below. Every step felt like walking on thin ice. One wrong move, one snapped twig, and they'd be discovered. Emily kept her rifle ready, prepared to take out any drone that got too close. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they reached a cave system Sarah had scouted earlier. It was damp and dark, but it provided shelter. Ryan sent 2 recruits ahead to scout the interior while the rest of the team waited outside. When the all-clear came, they slipped inside, collapsing against the cool stone walls in relief. Back, at the temporary safe house, Sarah and the others regrouped. The diversion had worked better than expected, drawing large numbers of Valan troops into a trap. Guerrilla fighters ambushed patrols, destroying several vehicles and causing widespread confusion. But the cost had been high. 2 members of Sarah's team had been captured and another was injured during the retreat. "They'll pay for this," Sarah muttered, pacing back and forth in frustration. She clenched her fists, her anger bubbling just beneath the surface. "We can't keep losing people like this." Lena, the young hacker, sat hunched over a laptop, typing furiously. "I've been monitoring their communications. They're pissed. Really pissed. Kale's calling for reinforcements from orbit." Greg, the explosives expert, frowned. "Reinforcements? That means bigger ships, more troops. We won't stand a chance if they bring everything they've got." Sarah shook her head. "Then we hit them before they can mobilize. We strike where it hurts most, their command center." Marcus, the mechanic, raised an eyebrow. "Their flagship? Are you serious? That thing's practically a fortress." "I know it's risky," Sarah admitted. "But if we disable their central hub, we can cripple their entire operation. It's the only way to level the playing field." The room fell silent as everyone considered the plan. It was insane, suicidal even, but desperation bred boldness. If they didn't act now, the Valens would crush them completely. When Ryan and his team returned to the safe house, they found Sarah waiting for them. Her face was pale, but her eyes burned with resolve. "We need to talk," she said without preamble. "It's time to end this." Ryan listened as she outlined the plan. infiltrate the Valen flagship, disable their command center, and escape before reinforcements arrived. It was madness, but Ryan couldn't deny the logic behind it. If they succeeded, they could turn the tide of the war. If they failed, well, failure wasn't an option. "This isn't just our fight anymore," Sarah added, looking around the room. "It's humanity's fight, and we're going to show them what happens when you mess with Earth." Ryan met her gaze, then turned to his team. "What do you think?" Emily nodded slowly. "It's dangerous, but it might work. We'll need every advantage we can get." The recruits exchanged nervous glances, but ultimately agreed. They had come this far together. They weren't about to back down now. The infiltration began at dawn. Disguised in scavenged Valen armor, Ryan and Emily led a small team aboard a stolen shuttle. Their hearts pounded as they approached the massive flagship looming above the planet. Its sleek design and glowing panels made it look invincible, untouchable. But appearances could be deceiving. As the shuttle docked, Ryan reminded everyone to stay calm. "Act natural," he whispered. "Stick to the plan. If anyone asks questions, let me handle it." The corridors of the flagship were eerily quiet, lined with glowing panels and strange symbols. Alien soldiers marched past, their footsteps echoing off the walls. Ryan and his team blended in as best they could, keeping their heads down and avoiding eye contact. Lena's hacking skills proved invaluable, disabling security systems and rerouting patrols to clear their path. When they finally reached the command center, Emily took position near the entrance, covering the hallway with her rifle. Inside, rows of Valen officers manned control panels, their attention focused on holographic displays. At the center of the room stood Commander Kale, his towering figure radiating authority. Ryan gestured for the team to move quickly. Using tools Marcus had modified, they began sabotaging the equipment. Sparks flew as circuits overloaded, plunging the room into darkness. Alarms blared, and chaos erupted as the officers scrambled to respond. Kyle roared in fury, turning toward the intruders. His glowing eyes locked onto Ryan, who stood defiantly in the middle of the room. "You dare challenge me?" Kale snarled, raising his weapon. Ryan didn't flinch. "Yeah, I do." A fierce firefight broke out. Emily picked off Valen soldiers. One by one, her shots precise and deadly. Ryan engaged Kale in close combat, dodging energy blasts and striking back with everything he had. The alien commander was strong, but Ryan's determination gave him the edge he needed. With a final blow, Ryan knocked Kale to the ground, disabling his armor's power core. The flagship trembled as systems failed, alarms wailing throughout the vessel. "Let's go," Ryan shouted, signaling for the team to retreat. They raced through the corridors, dodging collapsing debris and pursuing soldiers. Just as they reached the docking bay, they encountered a horrifying sight. A group of humans being held captive in glass pods, subjected to cruel experiments. Their eyes pleaded for help. "We can't leave them," Emily said firmly, stepping forward. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "Free them! Quickly!" Working together, the team smashed the pods, freeing the prisoners. Though weak and frightened, the captives followed them onto the shuttle. As the engines roared to life, the flagship shuddered violently, its systems collapsing under the weight of the sabotage. As they escaped into space, the flagship exploded in a brilliant burst of light, illuminating the sky. Back on Earth, people watched in awe as the massive vessel disintegrated, raining fire down upon the invaders. Cheers erupted in cities and towns, spreading like wildfire. Humanity had struck back and won. Ryan gazed out the window, his heart heavy but hopeful. They had paid a price, but they had also proven something important. Earth wasn't defenseless. Not anymore. The explosion of the Valen flagship lit up the sky like a second sun. Its fiery remains rained down, scattering across the atmosphere in streaks of orange and red. For a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, as the reality of what had happened sank in, cheers erupted from every corner of the planet. People poured into the streets, waving flags and hugging strangers. It was a victory, not just for Ryan's team, but for all of humanity. Inside the shuttle, the mood was quieter. Ryan sat at the controls, his hands gripping the wheel tightly. His face was pale, sweat dripping down his temples. Emily sat beside him, her rifle resting against her knees. Behind them, the freed captives huddled together, some crying, others staring blankly ahead. None of them spoke. There wasn't much to say. "We did it," one of the recruits whispered finally, breaking the silence. His voice was hoarse, barely audible over the hum of the engines. Ryan glanced back at him, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, we did. But don't celebrate yet. This isn't over." He was right. The destruction of the flagship had dealt a crippling blow to the Valens, but it hadn't wiped them out completely. Their ship still hovered above Earth. Their forces still patrolled the streets. The aliens would regroup, adapt, and strike back with everything they had. Humanity's victory was temporary, a spark of hope in an ongoing battle. As the shuttle descended toward a hidden landing site, Ryan's mind raced. They had proven that humans could fight back, but now they needed to prepare for what came next. The Valens wouldn't underestimate them again. Every move would be calculated, every attack merciless. If humanity wanted to survive, they would need more than courage. They would need unity. Back on the ground, news of the flagship's destruction spread quickly. Governments issued statements praising the resistance fighters who had pulled off the impossible. Media outlets broadcast footage of the explosion, calling it a turning point in the war. People around the world felt a surge of pride and determination. For the first time since the invasion began, there was a sense that Earth could win. Sarah Bennett stood in the middle of a crowded square, watching as civilians celebrated. Her heart swelled with emotion, but she couldn't shake the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. "This changes nothing," she muttered to herself. "We've only bought ourselves time." Marcus, standing nearby, heard her and nodded grimly. "She's right. The Valens aren't gone. They'll come back stronger. We need to be ready." Lena, the young hacker, adjusted her glasses nervously. "What do we do now? Keep fighting? Hide?" "All of the above," Sarah replied firmly. "But first we organize. No more scattered groups or lone wolves. If we want to stand a chance, we need to work together." Over the next few days, Sarah and the others worked tirelessly to build a network of resistance cells. They reached out to local militias, underground movements, and even defectors from Earth's military who refused to surrender. Slowly but surely, they began to unite under a single banner: Earth's Defenders. Ryan and his team joined the effort, sharing their knowledge and experience with new recruits. Emily trained marksmen, teaching them how to stay calm under pressure and make every shot count. Jake, though still recovering from his injury, acted as a mentor, offering advice and encouragement. Even the freed captives contributed, sharing information about the Valens' experiments and weaknesses. It wasn't easy. Resources were scarce and trust was fragile. Some groups resisted joining forces, fearing betrayal or loss of independence. But Sarah's persistence paid off. By the end of the week, dozens of cells had pledged their support, vowing to fight alongside Ryan's team. Meanwhile, the Valens regrouped. Without their flagship, their command structure was fractured. Smaller ships took over leadership roles, coordinating attacks and tightening their grip on occupied territories. Commander Kale, though injured, survived the destruction of the flagship and vowed revenge. He addressed his troops through holographic broadcasts, his voice cold and venomous. "Humans have shown us their true nature," he declared. "They are cunning, deceitful creatures who cannot be trusted. But they are not invincible. We will crush them city by city, until there is nothing left." His words sent shivers down spines, but they also hardened resolve. Humanity knew the stakes now. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight for freedom. And they weren't going to give up without a fight. One evening, Ryan and Emily sat outside a makeshift camp, gazing up at the stars. The alien ship still loomed overhead, casting long shadows across the land. Despite everything they had accomplished, the sight filled Ryan with unease. "What happens if we lose?" Emily asked quietly, breaking the silence. Her voice was soft, almost hesitant. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He picked up a stick and began drawing patterns in the dirt. "We won't," he said finally. "Not while there are people willing to fight." Emily nodded, though her expression remained troubled. "Do you think we can really win? I mean, look at them. Their technology, their numbers. They're so far ahead of us." Ryan set the stick down and turned to face her. "Yeah, they're advanced. But they don't know Earth like we do. They don't understand what it means to belong somewhere, to fight for something bigger than yourself. That's our advantage." Emily smiled faintly. "You sound like a leader." Ryan chuckled dryly. "I'm just trying to keep us alive." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying with it the scent of pine and damp earth. Somewhere in the distance, a wolf howled, a lonely sound that seemed to echo the uncertainty hanging over the world. "We've come a long way," Emily said finally. "From those first shots in the forest to taking down their flagship. Who would have thought we'd get this far?" Ryan shrugged. "Luck, skill, desperation, take your pick. But you're right, we've made progress. And as long as we keep hitting them where it hurts, we've got a chance." In the weeks that followed, the resistance grew stronger. Guerrilla fighters launched coordinated attacks on Veylan patrols, destroying supply lines and freeing prisoners. Civilians banded together to sabotage alien operations, using whatever tools they had at their disposal. Even children played a role, acting as messengers and scouts. The Veylans responded with brutal force, leveling entire neighborhoods suspected of harboring rebels. But instead of breaking humanity's spirit, the violence only fueled their determination. Stories of heroism spread like wildfire, inspiring others to join the fight. Farmers became soldiers, teachers became medics, and ordinary people became legends. Through it all, Ryan and his team remained at the forefront, leading missions and training new recruits. They weren't heroes, at least not in their own eyes, but symbols of hope. Wherever they went, people rallied behind them, ready to follow them into battle. Months later, the tide began to turn. The Veylans, once confident and arrogant, found themselves stretched thin. Their forces were spread across too many fronts, their resources dwindling. One by one, their strongholds fell, reclaimed by the very people they had sought to dominate. "Commander," Cale watched it all unfold from his remaining ship, his anger boiling over into rage. "How could this happen?" he demanded, slamming his fist against the control panel. "We are superior. They are nothing." His subordinates exchanged nervous glances but said nothing. They knew better than to argue with him when he was in this kind of mood. Orders went out immediately, calling for a full retreat. The Veylans couldn't afford to stay any longer. Earth had become a graveyard for their ambitions. As the alien fleet prepared to leave, Ryan stood atop a hill overlooking the battlefield. Behind him, survivors cheered and embraced, celebrating their hard-fought victory. But Ryan didn't join them. His gaze remained fixed on the horizon, where the last of the Veylan ships disappeared into the stars. Emily approached him, her rifle slung over her shoulder. "It's over," she said softly. "They're gone." Ryan nodded, though his expression remained somber. "For now. But this isn't the end. There are other species out there, other threats. If we want to protect Earth, we can't let our guard down." Emily placed a hand on his shoulder. "We'll be ready. Thanks to you, humanity knows what it's capable of." Ryan glanced at her, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Not just me. All of us." Together, they turned and walked back toward the crowd, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The galaxy had been put on notice. Humanity might be small, but it was far from weak. And should anyone else dare to laugh at Earth's defenders, they would learn the same painful lesson the Veylans had